Greetings again, everybody. Welcome back to Dark Souls 2. We are back in Drangleic Castle where we left off last time, and we're gonna go explore the rest, that is. Because, well, what else should we do? There's no other path to explore, really. This is kind of the part where the game gets more linear. The areas themselves were linear always, but we always were allowed to choose which path to progress on, kind of like a Mega Man stage select, but not anymore, no. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, we can't really access that elevator there, or go through that door, so we're gonna make do with that path here. Which actually will lead us to another golem. Now, I'm going to admit here that first time I played, I did not really notice that golem at all, and I had a lot of trouble progressing through the area. I went in circles over and over because you need to actually activate that golem. I will spoil what it does right away. It turns on that elevator. And on New Game Plus, this time around we used the Manslayer. We've seen it before. It is a katana that allows us to poison enemies, should we hit them enough. But since there's a lot of enemies here that take a lot of hits, it should prove to be useful. For now, back to New Game. The previous room was much harder with this character here because the weapon we're using, as I already pointed out in the previous video, doesn't really stagger those enemies, sadly, which makes it very hard to deal with them. Anyway, this room is one of the more annoying ones. That noise you just heard was a giant arrow headed our way, but it missed, thankfully. There are a couple enemies up here, 2 on each side. On New Game Plus and beyond, there will be more of those. But you don't exactly miss anything by me not showing that, really. It's just me taking care of more people. And this is so much faster. We could of course just go and run up to them and backstab them, because while they actually draw their string, they don't really turn around usually, so you can just run behind them and do your thing. In fact, well, why not do that right now? Yep, just gonna wait for him to draw and you can do your thing. Now, a nice thing about enemies is that if you backstab them, you can immediately attack them again. This does not apply to human players for obvious reasons, because it would make PvP kind of unbalanced, because one backstab would be certain victory. But I don't really see a problem with it being possible in PvE. Though I think with some of the later enemies, in the DLCs in particular, they kinda nerfed that too. But only for those enemies, funnily enough. We also just found Firestorm, and it's kinda weird that we find it here because it's the weakest of the Firestorm type spells. And you have access to Chaos Storm much earlier. Although, to be fair, to actually get Chaos Storm you actually have to go run across that burning platform that will kill you if you don't have really high fire resistance. Which will, of course, mean that some people never get it. Hell, most people are at a loss at how to get it, but it's actually quite simple. But I've already explained that. One interesting thing about resistance though is that 1000 resistance seems to make you immune. So it seems to be, well, not percent, but per mil. Which actually was the value that we reached when we went for Chaos Storm, by the way, so we were technically immune, and because I used a life gem we also healed. But oh well, let's go on. There's 3 more enemies down there. So let's essentially cheese them, in New Game Plus at least. Many people consider poison arrows to be a means of cheesing enemies. Hell, many people consider arrows themselves to be a means of cheesing them. But poison really is just that powerful. And coupled with normal arrows, see, I could have almost killed him before I even reached us. In fact, I'm confident that I could have had not decided to get in close. And these guys drop the Mastodon pieces of armor and also the weapons, of course. The ones in Doors of Pharos would have dropped the Rusted Mastodon set. It's much like the Hollow Soldier set and Royal Soldier set and the Ironclad and Old Ironclad set, in that it's the same looking set of armor, only one is in a very old state, the other one is in a polished state. And they have different stats too, so the polished ones are always better. And yeah, by the way, in case you didn't notice, even though those don't take that many hits, I still managed to poison them with the Manslayer. The Manslayer, by the way, has the same attack rating as the Uchigatana, only it does poison damage on top. So that's nice. However, this means that you can't really buff the Manslayer with resins as easily, or at all in fact, which is really sad. If you wanna buff it, I suggest using the Uchigatana instead. It's pretty much the same, only without the poison. The scaling might be a little bit different too though, but it's still the best alternative I can think of. By the way, we technically don't need to do any of this here, which we're doing. After activating the golem, we could have just either died or maybe used a homeward bone to get back to the bonfire, and we could have used the elevator. But, of course, we'll want to get through here. There's gotta be something to find. One thing I noticed, which you just saw probably, is that Emid Force seems to kind of have an upwards draw to it if you try to aim it, so you can't really aim it as easily. Maybe that's just me though, I don't know. And yeah, you don't even need to kill those enemies up there. They're just gonna shoot down on you on the next section if you don't. So it's a pretty splendid idea to actually kill them. And since it's raining here, lightning does more damage. Yep, that's nice. In turn though, it means that fire won't be as effective. Alright, now this is the last room of this little detour we're taking, so if there's anything here that you like, this is the only reason to come here basically. So let us see if it's worth it. Ah well, I suppose it is. I normally don't get every Estus charge when I play, normally at least. I usually end up having 9. But more, of course, are always a nice thing to have. After all, it means you're gonna die less because you can heal more. Our Estus Flask, by the way, is still at +4, although we already have the final piece of Sublime Bone Dust, so we could have upgraded it and made it +5. I just did not go back to Machula and burn it yet. +5 happens to be the maximum for Estus, so yeah, you get every piece of Sublime Bone Dust before Drangleic Castle. Speaking of Drangleic, this here on the elevator, that's the crest of Drangleic. It also happens to be on our shield, which is the Drangleic shield. Now this is a long elevator ride, so let's speed it up. Ah yeah, finally. It's really a long ride. It's the longest elevator ride in the entire game. And of course, up here in New Game Plus, we find a Red Phantom enemy. Ah well. I completely forgot he was there, of course. So, yeah, he's using the washing pole. Online, this would be a really big problem because katanas or weapons in general have phantom range anyway, but online this gets exacerbated because online there's lag to take into account and all that. So sometimes you will get hit by a weapon that you don't think has actually ever hit you. And since this weapon has a very long range, it's gonna cause you a lot of trouble. in that regard at least. It's one of the most common complaints and no one has yet thought of ever fixing that. But yeah, I actually have not encountered that many people online who use that particular weapon, to be honest. But I've restricted my PvPing to a certain area anyway. Maybe it's more of a thing that invaders use. Because what I did was I hung out at the bridge at the beginning of Iron Keep, which is a popular PvP hotspot. There's a lot of PvP invasion signs that can be found on the bridge, so you can summon other players as red phantoms into your world to fight them. There's also summon signs for a covenant that we have not discovered yet. It's another returning covenant from the first game, but we'll get into that once we actually get access to it. And now that we finally killed that guy, even though it was sloppy, we get the key to progress. They really wanted us to come up here and maybe see that woman in the cage there. I don't know. Certainly seems so. But there doesn't appear to be any way for us to get in there yet. There's that creepy dude hanging out there, but if we attack him, nothing happens. Yeah. So we'll have to come back later. But yeah, with that key in our pockets, we can now finally go through that one door down there that has been tempting us for a while now. And don't let that sneaky edit fool you, this elevator ride is pretty damn long. Up ahead we see the fog gate, which of course will lead us to the boss fight. And the savvy among you, well, you will have spotted something. There's quite a few statues to the left and the right, and there's basically no enemy except that one at the end. This of course means that the statues are evil. We need to kill them. Thankfully, we are allowed to actually attack them before they wake up. This of course will mean that they drop nothing. No souls and no items. They drop the Levelin set, which is a piece of armor that many people like for some reason. We've actually already worn it when we disguised ourselves as guts. At least for the most part we wore it. We wore the upper part. But yeah, this is what that guy or those guys look like once they actually, you know, wake up. And because I'm such a clever person, I did not expect that other guy to actually get aggroed as well. Normally they're a little more harmless, I like to say. Those guys can be quite a pain if you don't expect them and have to deal with all four of them at the same time. They will most likely kill you. Though if you walk down that path fairly carefully, you will only spawn one of them and you will be able to take care of them before the others actually are able to get to you. They will still wake up, don't get me wrong, but they will take a little longer than the others to wake up. And that summon sign we can see there to the right around that corner, that's actually Benhart's. And on New Game, we're gonna summon him of course, because we want to of course complete his quest line. But on New Game Plus, there's no need for us to do so. Because, well, we're good enough to do without him. Anyway, it's boss time now. A Looking Glass Knight. From Software seems to really like that guy. I'm basing this solely on the fact that before the game was released there was a contest of some variety, I forgot what exactly it entailed, but the prize for it was a statue of that guy. He is an interesting boss, though not for any reasons that are immediately apparent. He's not even particularly hard though, I make him look more difficult than he is. The most difficult part I find are his lightning attacks. They are easy to dodge for the most part, but their hitboxes are fairly large. The thing is that it's raining, so water is everywhere. And of course it's also on the ground. That means that the lightning he's using to attack actually, you know, has a larger effect. Your lightning of course does the same, though I believe he's lightning resistant. Because my attacks using a lightning buff on the Uchikatana, yeah, I switched the Manslayer out, actually, you know, doesn't do that much more damage. And yeah, he can do that. He has now summoned a phantom. This could very well be another player, but this one isn't, of course. If he summons another player, we get the message that it is another player. If it is another player though, you're probably fucked unless the guy is really bad. To be summoned by the Mirror Knight, or the Looking Glass Knight rather, you need to place a red summon sign somewhere in the area, I think after the last bonfire or at the last bonfire. It doesn't necessarily have to be in King's Passage though. From what I hear, regular cracked red eye orb invasions also work sometimes, but it's kind of a thing that requires a little more luck. That was a weird dodge. It almost seemed like I was jumping, but I wasn't. But yeah, if you want to be summoned for this fight, place your red summon sign somewhere. Yeah, the red summon sign, by the way, or rather the red sign soapstone, it's something you can get from Tichigren, the guy who likes blood a lot, so you need to kill the Executioner's Chariot to actually get the item you need to get summoned. That, or you need cracked red eye orbs. And right there, you saw his shield actually deflected our spell. This is something that can be a little bit annoying. Because if the spell hits you, it will actually damage you. We got lucky there, it missed us barely. But then again, that lightning hit us, it was very annoying. And now we're already out of Great Resonant Soul. Great Resonant Soul is actually one of the more powerful basic projectile spells. But basically, it costs us a couple souls, and in turn we shoot a powerful projectile. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that we did not get another player to invade us here, but whatever. This fight is intense as it is anyway, for us right now at least. I make it look more difficult than it is, but right now we're down to 1 Estus already. Part of the reason for that might be poor play, but part of it is also the fact that I had a little bit of bad luck dodging the lightning attacks. The best hint for dodging the lightning would probably be to just run away and not do what I did, because evidently staying close and dodging doesn't really seem to work that well. For me at least. You can also summon Benhart if you really have trouble with this fight, or you want his stuff. But other than that, as I already said, this fight is not too difficult. It's just kind of important to not circle him to the right, because then you will hit his shield when you attack. Which of course means you won't deal any damage. But if you circle him to the left, you won't have any problems with his shield unless you circle too far, but just don't do that, okay? I don't think I discussed this yet, but when summoning other players or even NPCs for co-op, you always need to consider that the boss will have a lot higher defense and you will need a lot more hits to actually kill him. Depending on how good your co-op partner is, they might actually complicate things if they're not as good as you. Alright now though, let's capitalize on the fact that he can't retaliate while he's summoning someone, and also the fact that whoever he's summoning will die as soon as the Looking Glass Knight dies. And hey, we get a Ring of Steel Protection +2 and New Game Plus as well, that's nice. We don't get that on regular New Game. Now before you go down the elevator, of course you will want to collect this treasure here. Not that you need it or anything, just might be nice to have. And here's another long elevator ride. Down to somewhere, I suppose. We're trying to get to the king. So maybe the king is down here. After all, this area we've just been through was called King's Passage. At the end of it was not the king, but the Looking Glass Knight, so... your guess is as good as mine. Well, of course, I already know what's down here. Because there's more to Drangleic Castle than meets the eye. Because as it turns out, Drangleic Castle was only the beginning of the endgame. And what we're gonna see now will be fairly interesting to you, I trust. It almost appears as though we are inside an arch tree, or rather close to one with all the roots here. Oh well, we're gonna go down there next time. For now, let's just rest up at the bonfire and then have a look at the boss weapons we can make. Fearing something wicked, the king fled the castle and never returned, but his warrior, forever true to his command, stands ready to expunge those who would challenge him. And this is the Thorned Greatsword. As the name implies, it's a greatsword type weapon, and it has a typical greatsword moveset, except of course for the strong attacks, which would shoot lightning. Which is nice. Of course it does so at the cost of durability, which means that you can't just spam it. I would make it overpowered anyway. I suppose it would be a good weapon if you fully upgrade it, although I've never done so myself, and in fact I don't really see many people using it, or any in fact. But having a weapon that shoots lightning probably has some utility. This area, by the way, is at the level of a New Game Plus 6, so this unupgraded weapon does even less damage than it normally would a New Game Plus Plus. To show off the King's Mirror, the other thing that we can make from the Looking Glass Knight soul, it's a shield. For that purpose I will actually show you a bit of the next area, because it happens to be the best area to showcase its special effect, in PvE at least. Because see, if we actually use the heavy attack of the shield, we are able to do something that appears to be very nice. We can deflect spells. But that's about all it does, and it's not very useful. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next time.